Hey folks, so this is Thomas from the MageRift team, and in this video I am going to be giving you an overview of MageRift Builder Mode, which is the mode that we have in the game that allows anyone from the MageRift community to build their own levels and then publish them out to the community for others to play. And what we're going to be doing here is building an entire level from scratch, and then once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and play it. So let's get started. So if we go in and create a new map, the first thing that you're going to see is that will bring us into the map editor, and in the map editor is where you're going to specify all of the base settings for what you're going to be building. And there are 5 main things that you need to fill in here, and we're going to be going through these in this video. First, you're going to need to go in and to give your level a name and a description. Second, you're going to need to pick an environment out of the 3 that are available. Third, you're going to need to pick a boss that players will fight at the end of your level. Fourth, you're going to pick 3 enemies, and I'll show you how you place these guys in ambushes and rotate them a little later. And fifth, which is a section that is empty right now, is to load your map with a bunch of traps. And as you load it up, the statistics on the right hand side of the screen are going to go in and fill out and give you an indication as to how easy or difficult you've made your level. So without further ado, let's go ahead and name this thing. So I already have an idea for what I want to build in this video, so I'm gonna name this level Arctic Skirmish, and we're gonna give it a quick description, something like a frosty fighting experience. Now the next thing that we need to do is to select the environment that we want to build our map on, and there are 3 environments that you can pick in MageRift. Your map will be randomly generated based on the environment that you pick, and the 3 environments are Lost Forest, Frozen Ruins, and Molten Caves. And they have different characteristics. The forest environment is a very dense environment for close quarters combat, and then the Frozen Ruins is a mixed density environment, and the Molten Caves is a more open, sort of spacious environment that doesn't have a lot of obstacles in the way. So if you want to build an open map, then you would probably pick the last one. If you want to build something that's more for close quarters combat, you would pick the first one. For this video, we're going to go ahead and pick the middle one. So we're going to build, as you may have guessed from the Arctic Skirmish title, something in the Frozen Ruins. The second choice that we need to make is which one of the bosses our player is going to fight when they get to or near the end of a level. And in MageRift, there are 5 different bosses that you can pick from. Each one of them has a different set of fighting abilities and characteristics, and they each have strengths and weaknesses. And each one of the bosses has different frenzy modes, so the more the player sort of beats them down, the harder they will get, and the more vicious their attacks are going to get with time. So in this case, I'm going to go and grab this first wizard here, and that will be the boss that we're going to be fighting at the end of our level. And the final decision that we need to make is which 3 enemies are going to be fought on this level, and which 3 enemies are going to be coming out of the ambushes that we're going to place when we're editing our map. In MageRift, there are 27 different enemies. Some of them are melee, some of them are projectile, and they, again, all have different sort of strengths and weaknesses. Some of them hit hard, some of them are really fast, and so on and so forth. And for this video, I'm going to go ahead and sort of grab this archer here, a nice ranged, and this wizard, and I'm going to grab this spinner, which has a slashing attack. So we've picked our 3 enemies, and we are now ready to go and edit our level map. So by entering into the trap designer, you're going to see a high-level outline of your map. And as I said before, every map is randomly generated, so no two people will ever be designing on the same map. Every MageRift combat experience, it doesn't matter who creates it, it essentially follows the same workflow for a player. You can see these two portals on the map. One of them is blue and the other one is pink. Your player, so any player that enters your map, will spawn at the blue portal, and then the place where the pink portal is where the boss area is going to be, or the vicinity in which the boss area is going to be. Now you have to remember that this pink portal is here as an indication of where the boss area is going to be, but in gameplay, our player needs to defeat the boss, and after the boss is defeated, the portal will appear on top of their dead corpse. So there's no way for the player to sort of, just do a straight run to that portal. Pretty much the entire map needs to be fought out, and the boss needs to be killed, and only after that does the player have the option of exiting to success. Okay. So from the left-hand menu, you're gonna notice that there's a bunch of categories there. Ambushes, mines, gates, towers, and power-ups. And if I just sort of click through these, you're gonna see the items that you can place on maps that will change sort of on the right-hand side. So there's, different item sets depending on the category of what you want to place on the map. It's important to know that ambushes and mines are visible to you when you're working in this map or in this trap designer component. However, they won't be visible to players. So the idea is to go in and to sort of place them and then have the players be surprised by them when they appear. And then, gates, towers, and power-ups are always visible on the map to both you when you're designing it and to players when they're playing it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to design a combat experience in sort of three parts. Like I said before, the player will spawn at the blue portal and the boss fight will happen in the vicinity of the pink portal. And what we're going to try to do is to sort of break down this map into three parts. When a player spawns, we're going to want to have them maybe fight a little bit, but we're going to give them a pretty easy start here. And then we're going to go in and design a sort of harder middle area where we're going to go in and force players to make some, interesting strategic choices. And then we're going to go in and try to aim to have the player be really challenged towards the end. And in order to do that, we're going to go in and load up sort of that final boss area with a bunch of, nasty little traps that are going to make it harder for them to go in and to fight the boss battle. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we said that we want to give the player sort of an easy start and a harder middle, and then have a bit of a challenge at the end. So we're going to get to this first part. I'm going to go towards the blue portal and zoom in, and we're going to place a couple of traps on this map here for our player to be challenged with. And so we're going to start off with a couple of mines. There are 6 different types of mines. They all do different things. Some of them explode, some of them poison the player, some of them retain the player. In this case, I'm going to choose the frozen orb mines, which are the blue ones, and place these on the map. What these mines do is they will spawn a little projectile that will follow the player, and if they catch up to him, they're going to go in and do a little bit of damage. And so when you place a bunch of them like this, it's a pretty good, and they get triggered, it's a pretty good incentive to move forward. So we've placed our mines, and we're going to add a couple of ambushes. Ambushes come in 4 flavors, small, medium, large, and huge. And the main difference is in the amount of enemies that they will spawn. A small will spawn 3, and a huge will spawn 9, medium is 5, and large is 7. So if I put one of these ambushes on the map, you will notice that there are 3 glowing circles in it, because it's a small one, so it will spawn 3 enemies, and there's a target. And what you can do is separate the target as such from the 3 glowing circles, and what I've just done is I have separated where the enemies will spawn versus where the ambush will be triggered. So when the player moves through the red target area, the 3 enemies are going to go in and spawn a little bit away from it. One last feature of ambushes is that right now they are random. The enemies that will spawn will be random. However, I can specify one of my 3 enemies, so either the archer or that wizard that we picked before, or the spinner slasher that we had. So they can be enemy specific, or it can just be sort of a random mix that you want to spawn in a player. In this case, we'll keep it to random, and let's lock that down. And let me go and make a few edits on this map, and then we'll move on to our second section. Okay, so we finished this sort of basic first section, and it's going to have a bunch of these enemies spawn out, and a couple of the mines if the player triggers them by walking over them. And so I'm going to save my changes and zoom out a bit and go more towards the middle section, and we can fill that out a bit more. So what we're going to do here, will be a little different. We're going to use a bunch of gates, and gates come in different flavors. Some of them are offensive and others are more for path shaping and blocking, like we've got here. And I'm going to place a bunch of these ice wall gates. Ice wall gates need to be broken in order for the player to go on to move forward any further. And I'm just going to place a bunch of these like that. And then what we're going to do is add a health potion for our player as a power-up. So let me just zoom in so you can see a bit better. And we're going to give them a shield and bring those together right here. Okay, now what are we going to do to make this challenging? Okay, so if we go into mines, what we will do is I'm going to add a couple of these vortex mines to one of the sides here. Okay. Like this. Okay, and then if we sort of go a little bit down here, and what the vortex mines will do is that they will actually hold the player back a little bit if they don't move away in time. And then we are going to add a couple of just simple shock mines that will explode. And so if our player goes for the power-up and they try to move away from it, well, they can move forward by going in and breaking one of the gates, or if they move sideways, they're going to go and hit a mine. And now we're going to do something that is a little evil but fun. So I'm going to grab one of these ambushes, and what we're going to do is spread it really, really wide, and we're going to put the target area on the power-up, and we're going to put a bunch of archers there, and we will also grab sort of a medium one and do that here, and we're going to put a bunch of wizards here, and we'll just grab maybe another small one so we can have all 3 enemy types when we play it later. Okay, and we're going to put this spinner here. And so what you see, if I zoom out a little bit, is that we've essentially worked out an area where the player shouldn't be able to go in and to go through at any point from within the gates. They might be able to here. So let's go and fill that out. What we'll do for that is that we will add a tower, and what we're going to do is add a fire trail tower. That should keep the undesirables at bay. And okay, save our changes, and well, that should be enough for our purposes. So we've blocked off the path, and what will happen is, as our player tries to go in and to run to the power-up, a bunch of enemies are going to spawn behind them, and they will be faced with a choice. Either they're going to try to run away, in which case they're probably going to get stuck in the mines, or they'll try to break the gate. or they will just stand their ground and fight. More things that we can do is we can go and do something like put a, sort of a big, huge ambush right after here, so that if they do get through, well, they're not left unchallenged on the other side. So let's go ahead and do that, and I think that's a pretty simple but solid second section. So let's move on to our third. So now that we filled out our sort of middle section, I mean, there's more that we could do here, obviously. There are no fixed or firm rules for designing these maps. I mean, you can load them up as much as you want. The only requirement that we have is that you be able to go in and to play and succeed at your own map before you publish it out to the community. So for this last section here, what we're going to do for part 3, as we said before, the boss area will be in the vicinity of the ping portal, and we're going to go in and sort of load this up with a bunch of, traps and such. So the first thing we're going to do is make it a little bit frustrating for the player, and because we want to keep them moving, we're going to add one of these wind orb towers that's going to shoot out projectiles. We're going to add one of these sort of homing laser towers. And if you add a bunch of these, they're a pretty good way to prevent people from, going back once they've entered an area or avoiding an area. We will also add one of these lightning orb towers. So we've got 4 placed here, and then we're going to add an ice trail tower. If the player enters into that area, it's going to slow them down. And then beyond that, I think it might be fun to add a few mines here. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to add these Fisher prisons. They're these viciously exploding mines when you hit them. Again, keeps the player moving. So we're going to just sort of load up a couple of those here. This should pretty much guarantee that our player gets pushed into the boss area and then is sort of stuck fighting it there. Another thing that we can do is add a couple of, exploding gates like this Fisher gate here. So that might be fun. So, they'll get through it, but they probably will not want to go back once they're fighting a boss. And then just because we are not completely evil, we are going to give them something useful. So we're going to give them a cooldown reduction power up here, and we're going to add a health potion just in case they're in real trouble at the end. Yeah, that should be and then, well, let's go and sort of do one of these here. Put a couple of archers. That should be enough for this video. So let me go back very quickly to the sort of bigger map and save my changes here. And so if we zoom out, we set out to design an easy first area, a harder middle area, and sort of a more vicious or harder boss fight at the end. And we have essentially done that. So now it is time to go and test our map. So I'm going to go ahead and play it with one of our 5 mages, and I'll be back after. So there you have it, folks. So we have just designed an end-to-end combat map in MageRift in Builder Mode, and you just saw me play it. I hope that you found this video useful and that it gave you a good overview of what you can do with this builder component. All of the maps that you create, as long as you pass them, you can publish them out. And if we go back to this main menu here, they are available for everybody to enjoy in Discover mode. This is the listing with a couple of filter categories that we have here that where maps are published. So thank you very much.